Welcome to the Hidden Wealth Coins. Imagine holding a single penny that looks ordinary but secretly carries the power to change your life forever. These wheat pennies are not just coins, they are hidden time bombs of wealth, born in history and ignored for decades. One careless spend could destroy millions, while one smart decision could unlock unimaginable fortune overnight. What if the richest treasure you'll ever own is already in your pocket right now today? First up, the 1935 wheat penny is one of those quiet coins that hides its story in plain sight, passed from hand to hand for decades without anyone suspecting the secrets it carries. At first glance, it looks ordinary, almost boring, just another old copper penny with Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. But history has a habit of disguising its most powerful treasures as everyday objects, and this coin is a perfect example of that truth. Minted during a time when the United States was still struggling to stand up after the Great Depression, the 1935 wheat penny represents survival, resilience, and the thin line between poverty and unimaginable wealth. People often underestimate coins like this because they assume rarity always comes with a dramatic appearance, but the real value of this penny lies in its story, its timing, and the tiny details that separate a common coin from a life-changing discovery. In 1935, America was slowly crawling out of one of the darkest economic periods in its history. Families saved every cent, jobs were scarce, and coins like the wheat penny were not collectibles but lifelines. These pennies bought bread, milk, and hope. Millions were minted, but not all were created equal, and not all survived the journey of time in the same condition. Some were mishandled, worn down, scratched, or melted, while a very small number escaped circulation almost untouched. Those few coins became silent witnesses to history, locked away in drawers, jars, and forgotten boxes, waiting for the day when the world would finally understand their importance. This is where the idea of million-dollar condition begins, because condition is not just about shine, it is about preservation against decades of human use and environmental damage. What makes the 1935 wheat penny so fascinating is that its value is not built on loud fame but on subtle perfection. The design itself was already historic, being part of the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic figure. Abraham Lincoln's portrait carried emotional weight for a nation trying to rebuild itself, and the wheat ears on the reverse symbolized growth, food, and survival. When a 1935 wheat penny appears today with razor-sharp details, full mint luster, and surfaces that look almost untouched by time, it stops being just a coin and becomes a historical artifact. Collectors are not paying for copper alone, they are paying for a moment frozen in metal, a piece of America's recovery era preserved exactly as it left the mint. Over the years, stories have emerged of rare 1935 wheat pennies surfacing from the most unexpected places. Old family collections, inherited jars of loose change, forgotten envelopes hidden inside books, and even coins found in the bottom of old furniture. The shock comes when people realize that the difference between a few cents and a fortune can be measured in microscopic details. A perfectly struck coin, free from wear, with strong wheat lines and a bold Lincoln profile, can reach values that sound unbelievable to anyone outside the collector world. This is why experts constantly warn not to spend old pennies casually, because once a rare piece enters circulation again, its condition and value can be destroyed forever in a single careless transaction. The idea of unimaginable wealth attached to a 1-cent coin feels almost like a myth, but it is rooted in how scarcity truly works. Millions of 1935 pennies were produced, yet only a tiny fraction exist today in flawless or near-flawless condition. Time is the greatest filter, and it eliminates most coins long before collectors ever see them. This natural selection of metal means that the finest surviving examples become trophies for elite collectors who compete fiercely to own them. When demand collides with extreme scarcity, prices rise not slowly, but explosively. That is how a humble wheat penny can step into the realm of million-dollar conversations, not because of exaggeration, but because of survival against all odds. Another powerful factor behind the value of the 1935 wheat penny is its place in the broader story of American coinage. It sits in a transitional period, close enough to the earliest Lincoln cents to carry historical weight, yet far enough along to reflect improvements in minting quality. This balance makes it deeply attractive to collectors who want coins that represent both origin and maturity. A top-condition 1935 penny becomes a benchmark, a reference point that defines what perfection looks like for wheat cents. Owning such a coin is not just about money. It is about status, authority, and the pride of holding a piece that few others on earth can claim. The phrase "million condition" is not marketing language. It describes a level of preservation so rare that it feels unnatural for a coin nearly a century old. The color must be rich and original, the surfaces smooth and undisturbed, the edges clean, and the strike sharp enough to show every design element clearly. Coins that reach this level are often compared, debated, and admired intensely because even tiny differences can separate a great coin from a legendary one. This microscopic attention is what drives prices into astonishing territory. In this world, perfection is not optional, it is everything. For someone who unknowingly owns such a coin, the danger is not theft but ignorance. Spending a rare 1935 wheat penny at face value is not just a financial loss, it is the destruction of a historical survivor. Once a coin like this is scratched, bent, or worn down, it can never return to its former glory. That is why experienced collectors always say that the true power of rare coins lies in patience. Rushing to sell without understanding what you have can turn a potential life-changing moment into a regret that lasts forever. The idea that a single coin can change a person's fortune overnight might sound dramatic, but history has shown it to be true more than once. Coins have turned ordinary people into overnight success stories simply because they took the time to learn before acting. A 1935 wheat penny in extraordinary condition represents opportunity disguised as copper. It does not announce itself loudly, it waits quietly for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its worth. This silent power is what makes rare coins so emotionally charged and endlessly fascinating. What separates serious collectors from casual observers is their understanding of history as value. They do not see pennies as small or insignificant, they see them as chapters of a national story written in metal. The 1935 wheat penny tells a story of endurance, recovery, and hope during a fragile moment in American history. Holding such a coin is like holding time itself, compressed into something small enough to fit in your palm yet powerful enough to command respect across the world. Many people search for wealth in complex places, chasing trends, investments, and risks, while overlooking the possibility that value can sit quietly in a drawer for decades. The wheat penny proves that wealth does not always shine loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it hides behind the most ordinary appearance imaginable. This is why collectors treat old coins with reverence, because they understand that every surviving piece has already beaten impossible odds. The fascination with the 1935 wheat penny continues to grow as fewer high-quality examples remain undiscovered. Second up, the 1944 wheat penny is one of the most deceptive coins ever produced by the United States, a coin so ordinary in appearance that it has slipped through millions of hands without raising suspicion, yet powerful enough to carry a fortune beyond imagination. At first glance, it looks like a simple brown or copper-colored cent with Abraham Lincoln's familiar face and 2 wheat ears on the back, but history rarely reveals its greatest treasures openly. This penny was born during one of the most intense moments in American history, when the world was at war and every material, every resource, and every coin mattered. Because of that moment in time, the 1944 wheat penny exists at the crossroads of necessity and chance, and that is where its extraordinary story begins. In 1944, the United States was fully engaged in World War II, and copper was no longer just a metal, it was a weapon resource. Copper was needed for ammunition, wiring, and military equipment, forcing the U.S. Mint to make difficult decisions about coin production. The previous year's steel pennies had already shocked the public, and in 1944 the Mint returned to copper-based cents, but not in a normal way. The metal used was recycled from wartime materials, including shell casings, meaning these pennies were literally forged from the remnants of battle. That alone gives the 1944 wheat penny a historical weight few coins can match, because it connects everyday civilian life directly to the global conflict that shaped the modern world. Millions of 1944 wheat pennies were produced, yet the story does not end with numbers. History never values quantity alone, it values survival, condition, and anomalies. Over time, most of these pennies were worn down by decades of circulation, scraped across counters, dropped on streets, and stored carelessly in pockets and jars. Only a tiny fraction escaped this fate. Those that remained untouched, sharp, glowing, and nearly perfect became something entirely different from pocket change. They transformed into rare historical survivors, coins that appear today almost exactly as they did when they left the mint during wartime America. What truly elevates the 1944 wheat penny into legendary territory is the existence of extremely rare variations and exceptional conditions that defy expectations. Some pennies were struck in ways that should never have happened, using leftover materials or unusual planchets, creating coins that were never meant to exist. These mistakes were not noticed at the time because the country had more important concerns than pennies. Decades later, these accidental creations became the center of collector obsession, because rarity born from error is the most powerful kind of rarity. When a coin exists against the rules of its own era, it becomes priceless in the eyes of those who understand history. The term million condition is not about exaggeration, it is about impossibility. A 1944 wheat penny that survives with full detail, original color, smooth surfaces, and no signs of wear is already rare beyond belief. When that level of preservation combines with unusual characteristics, the value does not rise gradually, it explodes. Collectors are not paying for 1 cent of metal. They are paying for a once-in-a-lifetime artifact that escaped time, war, and human carelessness. This is how a coin smaller than a fingernail can enter conversations normally reserved for mansions and luxury estates. The emotional pull of the 1944 wheat penny comes from its connection to ordinary people living through extraordinary times. This coin passed through the hands of factory workers, soldiers' families, shopkeepers, and children saving pennies while the world held its breath. Every scratch on a worn example tells a story, but the untouched ones tell an even louder story of chance. They remind us that history is not only written by leaders and battles, but also by the small objects people used every day without realizing their future importance. There are stories of individuals discovering these pennies long after the war ended, hidden in inherited collections, forgotten envelopes, or old containers that had not been opened in decades. The shock does not come immediately. At first, it feels impossible that a penny could matter at all. Then understanding begins to grow, and with it, the realization that selling too quickly or spending casually could destroy something irreplaceable. Once a rare 1944 wheat penny is damaged or lost, history loses a survivor forever, and that loss cannot be undone with money. What gives this coin the power to change a fortune overnight is not luck alone, but timing and knowledge. The modern collector world values authenticity, condition, and historical significance above all else. A truly extraordinary 1944 wheat penny sits at the intersection of all three. When such a coin appears, collectors do not hesitate, because they know opportunities like this do not repeat themselves. Competition drives prices upward, and suddenly a coin once worth 1 cent becomes a symbol of unimaginable wealth. The idea that a single coin can make someone wealthy feels unreal, yet history repeatedly proves that the smallest objects can carry the greatest value when they survive against impossible odds. The 1944 wheat penny is powerful because it represents both survival and scarcity. Most were used, lost, or damaged. The few that remain in exceptional form become ambassadors of a vanished era, carrying the weight of wartime America in their copper surfaces. Collectors see something deeper in this coin than just rarity. They see transformation. A metal once used for war returned to civilian life in the form of money, and decades later transformed again into an object of desire. This layered transformation is why the 1944 wheat penny commands such respect. It is not static history, it is history that evolved over time, gaining meaning with every passing year. The danger for anyone who unknowingly possesses such a coin is underestimation. Spending it, cleaning it improperly, or selling it cheaply can erase its potential instantly. Knowledge is the true gatekeeper of wealth here. Those who understand what they hold protect it, research it, and approach it with patience. Those who do not may never realize what slipped through their fingers until it is too late. As time moves forward, fewer untouched 1944 wheat pennies remain undiscovered. Each year that passes increases their mystique and their value. Coins already secured in collections are rarely released, tightening availability and intensifying demand. This slow disappearance from public circulation fuels the legend further, turning the coin into something almost mythical among collectors. The 1944 wheat penny ultimately teaches a powerful lesson about history and value. Not everything valuable announces itself loudly. Some treasures are quiet, humble, and easily ignored. Yet when the right knowledge meets the right object, the result can be life-changing. A single cent, born during war, shaped by necessity, and preserved by chance, can hold the power to transform a future in ways that few investments ever could. In the end, the true power of the 1944 wheat penny lies not only in its potential price, but in its story. It reminds us that history lives in our hands, sometimes disguised as the smallest things. If you ever encounter one of these coins, remember that you are holding more than money. You are holding survival, rarity, and the possibility that one quiet decision could change your fortune overnight. Third up, the 1948 Wheat Penny is one of those coins that looks harmless, ordinary, and forgettable, yet quietly carries the weight of a turning point in American history and the potential for unimaginable wealth. To the untrained eye, it is simply another old penny with Lincoln's familiar face and wheat ears on the back, a coin that blends easily with thousands of others. But history does not reward what is obvious. It rewards what survives, what stands at the edge of eras, and what escapes destruction by chance alone. The 1948 Wheat Penny exists at the exact moment when America was redefining itself after war, and that timing gives this coin a depth and power that most people never stop to consider. In 1948, the United States was no longer fighting a global war, but the scars of World War II were still everywhere. Industries were shifting back to civilian life, economies were rebuilding, and people were learning how to live in peace again. Coinage during this period reflected that transition. The wheat penny was nearing the end of its long life, and the country itself was stepping into a new chapter. This makes the 1948 issue special, because it represents the final years of a design that had witnessed both prosperity and crisis. Coins from this era are not just currency. They are historical markers frozen in metal. Millions of 1948 wheat pennies were minted, but numbers alone mean nothing in the world of true value. Most of these coins lived hard lives. They were spent, dropped, scratched, cleaned, and worn down by decades of use. Over time, their sharp details faded, their surfaces dulled, and their historical clarity disappeared. Only a tiny number escaped circulation early or were protected without intention, locked away in drawers or collections where time could not reach them. These rare survivors are what collectors search for, because survival is the first step toward greatness. What pushes certain 1948 wheat pennies into legendary territory is not just age, but conditions so extraordinary that it feels almost impossible. A coin from this year that still shows full detail in Lincoln's hair, crisp wheat lines on the reverse, and original surface color without damage is already extremely rare. When such a coin appears today, it feels like a message sent from the past, untouched by the chaos of everyday life. This level of preservation transforms a 1-cent coin into an artifact worthy of museums and elite collections. The phrase, "million condition," reflects a standard so high that most coins never come close to it. It means the coin has survived not just time, but human nature. No careless handling, no harsh cleaning, no accidental drops, no slow erosion of detail. Coins like this exist because of luck layered on top of history. When collectors encounter such a piece, they are not simply buying copper. They are securing something that may never appear again in their lifetime. That is how values climb into territory that sounds unreal to outsiders. The emotional power of the 1948 wheat penny comes from its place between endings and beginnings. It belongs to the final chapter of the Wheat Penny series, a design that had served America for decades and was about to be replaced. That alone gives it a sense of farewell, a closing statement in metal. Collectors are deeply drawn to coins that mark transitions, because transitions are where history becomes meaningful. The 1948 wheat penny is not just old, it is symbolic of change. There are stories of people discovering 1948 wheat pennies by accident, mixed into inherited collections or hidden among ordinary change. At first, there is disbelief. How could something so small matter at all? But understanding grows quickly once the history is revealed. The real danger lies in acting too fast. Spending such a coin or selling it cheaply without knowledge can erase its potential forever. Once damaged, its story is permanently altered, and history loses a perfect witness. What gives this coin the power to change a fortune overnight is the intense competition among collectors for perfection. High-end collectors are not casual buyers. They are guardians of history who seek the finest examples ever produced. When a 1948 wheat penny in exceptional condition enters the market, it does not sit quietly. It attracts attention, debate, desire, and rivalry. Prices rise not because of hype, but because rarity combined with historical meaning creates pressure that money willingly follows. The idea that a penny could be worth millions feels like a contradiction, yet history thrives on contradictions. A coin designed for everyday use becomes extraordinary precisely because it was never meant to survive untouched. The fewer that remain in flawless condition, the more powerful they become. The 1948 wheat penny gained strength every year as time removes more examples from contention, leaving only the best behind. Collectors see these coins as time capsules. They imagine the year it was minted, the people who lived then, the uncertainty of the future, and the hope of rebuilding. Holding a pristine 1948 wheat penny feels like holding a moment when the world was quietly resetting itself. That emotional connection drives desire far beyond logic, because humans value stories as much as objects. The greatest mistake someone can make with such a coin is underestimating it. Cleaning it, carrying it loosely, or spending it at face value can destroy decades of survival in seconds. Knowledge is the true key. Those who understand what they have treat it with patience and respect, allowing time and rarity to do their work. Wealth in this world does not reward haste, it rewards understanding. As the years pass, untouched 1948 wheat pennies become harder to find. Many are already secured in private collections, unlikely to return to public view. This shrinking availability increases demand and intensifies the legend surrounding the coin. What was once common slowly becomes mythical, not because the coin changed, but because the world around it did. The 1948 wheat penny ultimately stands as proof that value is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, disguised as something familiar, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. A single cent, born at the edge of a new era, can hold the power to transform a life when knowledge meets patience. In the end, if you ever encounter a 1948 wheat penny, remember that you are holding more than money. You are holding history, survival, rarity, and possibility compressed into copper. What you choose to do next could mean the difference between losing a forgotten cent and unlocking a fortune that history quietly preserved just for the one who understood its true power. Fourth up. The 1951 wheat penny is one of the most misunderstood coins in American history, quietly existing in the shadows of louder, more famous dates, yet holding a power that few people ever stop to question. At first sight, it feels ordinary, almost boring, just another old penny with Lincoln's familiar portrait and wheat ears on the reverse. But history has a habit of hiding its most dangerous secrets inside simple objects. The 1951 wheat penny was born at a moment when America believed stability had returned, and that false sense of normalcy is exactly what allowed certain extraordinary coins to slip through unnoticed, carrying the potential for unimaginable wealth into the future. By 1951, the United States had stepped out of the chaos of World War II and into a new global role. The country was rebuilding, industries were booming, and confidence was rising. Coins produced during this time were treated casually because people believed the hard times were behind them. Pennies were not saved, protected, or respected as historical objects. They were spent freely, tossed into drawers, and forgotten. That casual treatment is what makes surviving examples in exceptional condition so rare today, because history did not protect them, chance did. Millions of 1951 wheat pennies were struck, but history does not reward numbers, it rewards endurance. The vast majority of these coins were worn down through daily use, losing detail, shine, and identity as the years passed. Each scratch, each faded wheat line, each softened feature on Lincoln's face represents time winning its slow battle. Only a microscopic fraction escaped that fate. Those few coins that survived untouched, sharp, and original became something entirely different from pocket change. They became survivors, and survival is the foundation of extreme value. What elevates certain 1951 wheat pennies into million-level conversations is not noise or hype, but silence. These coins did not announce themselves when they were made. They were not celebrated, collected, or admired. They simply existed and survived. A coin from this year that still shows razor-sharp detail, untouched surfaces, and original color is an accident of history. It represents a perfect storm of neglect and preservation, a contradiction that collectors find irresistible. The phrase, million condition, describes a state so rare that it almost feels unnatural. It means the coin looks today almost exactly as it did the moment it left the mint. No wear from pockets, no damage from cleaning, no scars from circulation. Coins like this challenge logic, because they were created to be used, not saved. When such a 1951 wheat penny appears, it does not behave like a coin anymore. It behaves like a relic, something closer to art than money. The emotional weight of the 1951 wheat penny comes from its place near the end of an era. The wheat penny design was approaching its final years, soon to be replaced by something modern and different. Coins from these closing chapters carry a special gravity because they represent the final heartbeat of a long-running design. Collectors are drawn to endings as much as beginnings, because endings mark transformation. The 1951 Wheat Penny stands quietly at that threshold. Stories often surface of these coins being found accidentally, mixed with ordinary change, inherited from relatives who never imagined their value. The shock comes slowly. At first, it feels impossible that a penny could matter. Then the realization grows that condition changes everything. A coin like this does not forgive mistakes. One careless cleaning, one unnecessary scratch, one rushed decision can erase decades of survival instantly. That is why knowledge is more powerful than luck in this world. What gives the 1951 Wheat Penny the ability to change a fortune overnight is collector psychology. Serious collectors are not chasing trends, they are chasing perfection. When a truly extraordinary example appears, it creates tension, competition, and urgency. These coins are not replaced once sold. When one disappears into a collection, it may never return to the open market. That scarcity creates pressure that pushes values into astonishing territory. The idea that a 1-cent coin could be worth millions feels unreal, yet history repeatedly proves that the smallest objects can carry the greatest weight. The 1951 Wheat Penny gains strength every year simply by existing. As time removes more coins from contention through damage and loss, the surviving elite examples become more powerful. Rarity is not created overnight, it is carved slowly by time. Collectors see these coins as time capsules. They imagine the early 1950s, a world balancing hope and fear, progress and uncertainty. Holding a pristine 1951 Wheat Penny feels like touching a moment when America believed the future was secure. That emotional connection drives desire far beyond logic, because people do not collect metal, they collect meaning. The greatest danger for anyone who owns such a coin is underestimation. Spending it, selling it cheaply, or mishandling it can destroy something history worked decades to preserve. Wealth in rare coins does not reward impatience. It rewards restraint, understanding, and respect for the past. Those who rush often lose everything without realizing what they had. As the years pass, untouched 1951 Wheat Pennies become increasingly scarce. Many are already locked away in private collections, removed from circulation forever. Each disappearance strengthens the legend and tightens the market. What was once common slowly transforms into something almost mythical, not because the coin changed, but because survival did. The 1951 Wheat Penny teaches a powerful lesson about value. Not all wealth is loud. Not all power shines. Some of it waits quietly, disguised as something familiar, until the right moment arrives. A single cent, born in a time of confidence and transition, can hold the ability to rewrite a life when knowledge finally meets opportunity. In the end, if you ever come across a 1951 Wheat Penny, remember that you are holding more than money. You are holding time, survival, and possibility pressed into copper. What you choose to do next could mean the difference between losing a forgotten penny and unlocking a fortune that history silently protected for decades. Fifth up. The 1953 Wheat Penny is one of those coins that lives quietly in history, never shouting for attention, never demanding respect, yet holding a depth and potential that few people ever truly understand. To most eyes, it looks like nothing more than an old copper penny, worn by time, familiar and forgettable. But history does not measure importance by appearance. It measures it by context, survival, and timing. The 1953 Wheat Penny was born at a moment when America believed it had entered an age of stability, and it is often during such moments that the most valuable mistakes of history are made unnoticed. By 1953, the United States had moved into the post-war world with confidence. The economy was growing, families were spending freely, and coins were treated as tools, not treasures. Pennies were passed along without thought, dropped into pockets, scraped across counters, and forgotten in jars. No one imagined that these small copper coins would ever be looked at again with serious eyes. That casual treatment is what gives surviving examples their power today, because almost nothing from this era was intentionally preserved. Millions of 1953 Wheat Pennies were produced, but numbers have never created true value. Time destroys quantity and rewards endurance. Most of these coins were worn smooth by daily life, their details softened, their surfaces damaged, their identity slowly erased. Only a tiny number escaped that fate, often by accident rather than intention. These survivors exist not because someone planned for them to survive, but because chance allowed them to remain untouched. That accidental preservation is what turns an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. What pushes certain 1953 wheat pennies into conversations about extreme value is condition so rare that it feels almost impossible. A coin from this year that still shows sharp detail in Lincoln's features, clear wheat lines, and original surface character is already exceptional. When a coin like that appears today, it feels less like currency and more like a message from the past, perfectly preserved against all odds. Collectors do not see metal when they see such a coin, they see survival. The idea of million condition represents a level of preservation that defies the purpose of the coin itself. Pennies were made to circulate, to be used, to be worn down. A 1953 wheat penny that avoided all of that is a contradiction, and contradictions are powerful in history. This is where value accelerates. Not slowly, not gradually, but suddenly. When rarity meets perfection, logic steps aside and desire takes control. The emotional strength of the 1953 wheat penny comes from its place near the end of a long-running design. The wheat penny era was approaching its final chapter, and coins from these years carry a quiet sense of closure. They represent the last breaths of a design that had witnessed wars, economic collapse, recovery, and transformation. Collectors are deeply drawn to coins that stand at the edge of change, because change gives objects meaning beyond their material. There are countless stories of people discovering these pennies without realizing what they held. Old collections inherited from relatives, forgotten containers of loose change, drawers that had not been opened in decades. At first, the coin feels insignificant. Then curiosity grows. Then understanding follows. And suddenly, a simple penny becomes a question mark capable of rewriting a future. That moment of realization is where history and opportunity collide. The danger with a rare 1953 wheat penny is not lost through theft, but lost through ignorance. Spending it, cleaning it harshly, or selling it quickly can erase decades of survival in seconds. Once damaged, a coin cannot return to what it was. History only gives one chance. That is why patience is the most valuable skill in this world. Those who rush often lose without ever knowing what slipped away. What gives the 1953 wheat penny the power to change a fortune overnight is the intense competition for perfection among collectors. High-level collectors do not chase average coins. They chase the best examples that exist. When a truly exceptional coin enters the spotlight, it creates pressure. It creates rivalry. It creates urgency. And urgency drives value into territory that seems unbelievable to those who do not understand the rules of rarity. A 1-cent coin becoming a $1 million object feels like fiction, yet history repeatedly proves that value is not determined by size. It is determined by survival and meaning. The fewer perfect examples remain, the stronger each one becomes. Every year that passes removes more coins from contention, sharpening the power of the survivors. The 1953 wheat penny grows more valuable not because it changes, but because time does. Collectors see these coins as time capsules. They imagine the early 1950s, a world balancing optimism and fear, tradition and modernity. Holding a pristine 1953 wheat penny feels like holding a frozen moment from a world that no longer exists. That emotional connection fuels desire far beyond rational calculation, because humans collect stories as much as objects. The greatest mistake anyone can make with such a coin is underestimating it. Treating it like ordinary change, assuming all pennies are the same, or acting without understanding can permanently erase its potential. Wealth hidden in history does not reward speed. It rewards awareness. Those who slow down and learn often discover that what they have been carrying was never ordinary at all. As time continues to move forward, untouched 1953 wheat pennies become increasingly rare. Many are already locked away in collections, removed from public reach forever. Each disappearance tightens availability and strengthens the legend. What once filled pockets now exists only in memory and guarded spaces, turning the coin into something almost mythical. The 1953 wheat penny stands as a reminder that fortune does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as something familiar, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. A single cent, born in a time of confidence and transition, can carry the power to change a life when knowledge finally meets opportunity. In the end, if you ever encounter a 1953 wheat penny, remember that you are holding more than copper. You are holding history, survival, and possibility pressed into metal. What you choose to do next could mean the difference between losing a forgotten penny and unlocking a future transformed by a decision made with understanding instead of haste. Sixth up. The 1955 wheat penny is one of the most legendary and misunderstood coins in American history, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but carries a reputation powerful enough to shake the collector world. To someone unaware, it appears to be just another old penny, copper-colored, familiar, and unremarkable. Yet history has a habit of hiding its greatest surprises inside the most common objects. The 1955 wheat penny was created during a moment of routine and confidence, and it was precisely that routine that allowed something extraordinary to slip through unnoticed, setting the stage for one of the most talked-about pennies ever made. By 1955, the United States was living in an era of optimism. The war years were behind, industry was strong, and everyday life felt stable. Coins were produced in massive numbers and treated with little thought. Pennies were meant to move quickly from hand to hand, not to be examined closely or saved. This environment of speed and carelessness is where history sometimes makes its quiet mistakes. When attention drops, anomalies survive, and the 1955 wheat penny was born into exactly that kind of moment. Millions of wheat pennies were struck that year, yet within that ocean of copper, a very small number stood apart from the rest. These coins were different, not by intention, but by accident, and history loves accidents. While most pennies were spent, scratched, and worn down, a few escaped circulation early or were noticed just enough to be set aside. Those survivors became something more than currency. They became proof that even in systems built for precision, imperfection can create extraordinary value. What separates the 1955 wheat penny from many other dates is the way its story spread. This coin was not just rare, it was noticeable. It carried a visual impact that caught attention decades later, turning it into a symbol of how mistakes can become treasures. When collectors encounter such a coin, they are not simply seeing copper and inked numbers. They are seeing a moment when human systems failed just enough to create history. That kind of failure is priceless. The term million condition reflects not only rarity but preservation layered on top of uniqueness. A 1955 wheat penny that survived in exceptional condition represents a miracle stacked upon a miracle. It avoided wear, avoided damage, avoided destruction, and carried its identity clearly through decades of time. Coins like this do not exist in large numbers. They exist as individuals, each one carrying its own personality and story, and that individuality is what drives value into unbelievable territory. The emotional power of the 1955 wheat penny comes from its contradiction. It was created during a calm period, yet it became one of the most dramatic coins in American numismatic history. Collectors are drawn to this contrast because it reminds them that history does not always announce itself with chaos. Sometimes it whispers, and only those who listen carefully hear it. The 1955 wheat penny whispers loudly now, but it was silent when it mattered most. Stories of discovery surrounding this coin often feel unreal. People finding one mixed among ordinary change, hidden in old collections, or passed down by family members who never realized what they held. At first, disbelief takes over. How could a penny matter? Then understanding grows, and with it, caution. Because this is not a coin that forgives mistakes. One careless decision can erase decades of survival and turn something extraordinary back into something ordinary forever. What gives the 1955 wheat penny the power to change a fortune overnight is collector demand driven by legend. This is not just a rare coin, it is a famous one. Fame amplifies desire, and desire fuels competition. When collectors compete, prices stop behaving normally. They climb, driven by urgency and fear of missing out. Owning such a coin is not just about money, it is about owning a piece of history that everyone else wants but few can have. The idea that a 1-cent coin can reach values discussed in millions feels impossible until you understand how rarity works. When supply shrinks and demand grows, logic gives way to reality. The 1955 wheat penny sits at a point where history, error, survival, and fame intersect. Coins that exist at such intersections do not fade quietly. They grow louder with time, gaining strength as fewer examples remain available. Collectors do not see this penny as small. They see it as iconic. It represents a moment when the ordinary broke the rules and became extraordinary. Holding a pristine 1955 wheat penny feels like holding proof that history is not always planned. That unpredictability gives the coin emotional weight, and emotional weight is what transforms objects into treasures. The greatest danger for anyone who owns such a coin is treating it like all the others. Cleaning it, spending it, or selling it quickly without understanding its significance can destroy its future instantly. Rare coins do not reward impatience. They reward respect. Those who take time to understand what they have often discover that the smallest objects can carry the largest consequences. As time continues forward, genuine high-quality 1955 wheat pennies become harder to encounter. Many are already locked away, protected by collectors who understand exactly what they own. Each year that passes tightens availability and strengthens the legend. What was once a simple penny has become a symbol of how chance can rewrite destiny. The 1955 wheat penny teaches a powerful lesson about value and awareness. Wealth does not always arrive dressed in gold. Sometimes it arrives disguised as copper, hidden in familiarity, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. History rewards those who notice what others ignore. In the end, if you ever come across a 1955 wheat penny, remember that you may be holding more than loose change. You may be holding a piece of history powerful enough to alter a future overnight. What you do next matters. Knowledge, patience, and respect can turn a single cent into a life-changing decision that history quietly prepared decades ago.